as a libertarian, I'm going to be in favor of global trade. If my country has a big military that could stabilize trade routes, so my country could do better trades with other countries, I'm going to be in favor of that. So I would be in favor as a libertarian for a global military presence of my country because because my country has saved enough money to be able to afford that.
Right. So the way the Libertarian Party went, though, is it very much got like, I call it ISO cucked. It very much became, we don't want to have military presence everywhere because our military is funded by the government taxes and taxation is theft and blah blah blah. Like that's kind of where I know where
It's
I
retarded.
understand. I'm just telling you as somebody who came out of that cult, not a literal cult, but like I very much came from that world until October 7th. And then all these like free anti-racist, free open hippie types who just liked capitalism turned on all of their Jews, even the Jews who had established half of the thoughts that they were parroting. So that was kind of part of my wake-up call.
I understand that. I just want to say, don't, just because they advocate for that, don't let them represent libertarianism. Like that is not what libertarianism is about.
Well, okay, I see where you're coming from, but that's like saying, I guess where I would disagree is that's like saying when the old left said this is not say that the woke left isn't the left. Yes, they're technically correct, but to the average person, that is what the left has become.
Well, this I actually could justify me saying they are not libertarians. Libertarians are supposed to be for capitalism. Capitalism believes in taxes. Capitalism believes in taxes. So
Can
saying
you
taxation is, yeah.
Ooh, okay. They would say that capitalism, that taxes, because they also believe in this kind of idea of non-aggression, and since you're paying taxes by the gun, I'm literally just I'm not defending their points. I'm just telling you
That's
what I
anarchism. They're not libertarians. They're anarchists. They're anarchists. These are anarchists who are calling themselves libertarians.
Yeah, you're probably right. But they would also argue that anarchy is just the like logical conclusion of libertarianism. That's what they would
That's
say.
not
We can take
capitalism
it up
does
with them.
not
I'm
work.
not going to defend their
Yeah,
point.
yeah,
I'm just
I know.
telling you what they would
Okay.
say. I'm not here to defend that. I'm just telling you what they would say. But yeah, I do. My main point, though, to wrap up my thoughts so we can move on, is just do we think that we are coming to the end of the ISO cuckery of the first 20 years of the 21st century? That's my main point.
Yeah. Okay. So I think there were some people who wanted to add to that.
We
BT.
have a few hands that wanted to add to it. First, Adam had 14 hands, so we'll let him go first.
I wanted to comment on the whole definitional thing, especially because analytic philosophy is my original training. So we like to be, and computer programming, so definitions and like to be precise about them. But am I able to share my screen? Does that work? I have a political compass thing I want to show here.
Yeah, I think. Well, let me see. Maybe I should allow you.
There's a waiting
Allow
for.
screen sharing. There
Okay,
you
let me
go.
try it.
Allow screen sharing.
And this is, I did these graphs. I mean, I got these from this website where you can take the questionnaire, politicalcompass.org, and these are Canadian political parties. So conservative this is the federal version of the party that kicked Goldie out, right? And they've drifted to the right. And I'm actually a lefty. You can see me on the right hand here, adamgolding.ca. I'm like to the left of the party that fired me, which is the NDP. So we were both kicked out of the extremes and think independently, I think. But in Canada, for instance, I think there should be a horizontal line that goes along the bottom of anarchists who are united left versus right. So the anarcho socialists on the left with the anarcho-capitalists on the right. You could call them both anarchists, Armin. Like I know you were saying, like, well, those people are anarchists. Well, those are anarchists who care about one kind of freedom, which is negative freedom. Don't tread on me, small government. But
Yeah,
anarcho-socialists care about
basically,
positive freedom of enablement.
such level of extreme freedom that you're only free to die, basically,
Yeah,
because
and
there's
that's
nothing to support you.
I would say that's
Freedom,
too far right. But
Nick,
I think go ahead.
focusing so much on negative freedoms with no positive freedoms means that you're only free to die. You're only free enough
Yeah.
to see if you could basically how much you're going to be able to survive against somebody with a bigger stick than you to come kill you and take you. You're free to do whatever you want, but you're going to die soon because
Yeah.
there's nobody there to protect you.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think that's too far right on the sort of line that should be going from left to right, joining all of the anarchists together. And I think libertarianism has been pushed to the right in order to disrupt the anti-authoritarians. Like, so the other thing you see in that graph is that everything's drifted to the authoritarian direction. And I think it's a divide and conquer strategy, basically, of taking the anarchists and straw manning it as absolute anarchism or far right anarcho capitalism, when really all of the different anti authoritarians should be working together. Like, we're resisting the authoritarianism of the Islamic regime. That's a kind of anarchism because
Anarchism goes too far being against authority. We do need some form of authority. We
well,
need governments. I
it
feel like
can
when it comes to both right-leaning anarchists and left-leaning anarchists, the issue I have with them is that they're too anti-government.
It could be. I think the most flexible definition is Chomsky's, and he just says it's a skepticism of power and where you place the burden of proof on the power difference. Some extreme anarchists say he's not even a real anarchist, but I just think he's providing a very flexible
I don't think
definition.
skepticism of government makes you anarchist. I think everybody, I think that's just skepticism, which is yeah, okay. I don't think that's a good definition. I think anarchists just don't like government. I have never met an anarchist that says like, "Oh, actually, government can be good." Never met one.
Well,
Neither from the right or the left.
you met me today, so I'll try to
Okay.
live down the stereotype of anarchists who are extreme
Okay.
absolutists about it.
Okay.
Chomsky doesn't think the government should be completely abolished, but he identifies as an anarchist, right?
Chomsky is not a good source of information. I don't like.
Well, that could be true, but he's affected what the words mean, that's for sure, because he's so widely read. So the way he uses the word, he says it's burden of proof, and he's an anarchist, even though he's not trying to shut down the U.S. government. It's a disposition.
He sounds like he sounds like he is, but anyways, he's anti the U.S. government. All right,
he's not.
Let's go to other people.
Yeah.
Sure. So we had two other people who we had two others who wanted to comment on this subject, and then I'm going to ask that we table it until after Armin is gone. That way we make sure we get everything Iran covered while he's here. Jal?
Yeah, I wanted to get to. You said that you used to be more isolationist before October 7th, and that kind of woke you up.
October 8th is what woke me up.
Instead, that's been true for a lot of people.
Seeing a lot of the libertarian space was created by Jewish writers, some of whom were Zionist and some of whom weren't. But regardless of their views on Zionism, what I saw between October 8th and the new year was organizations and all of these people turning on people and then also continue to parrot them. And I'm like, you're quoting people that you have just like excommunicated. So it just, the hypocrisy of it and the fact that they were just like deleting the names while still carrying on these ideas that they contributed to, it just kind of, it fundamentally pissed me off.
Yeah, I can understand that. I noticed that myself.
Dijal, we're so behind our list, so if you could just make your final point before we move on.
Yeah, sure. I was just saying, I get what I understand what you're saying. You interrupted my train of thought. Yeah, I get. Yeah, I hear.
Francesco, you're up next.
Yeah, my question is for Jeffrey, and I don't know. I think it's a very, I would say, stupid, naive question. It's like, why didn't Russia give the nukes already to the Islamic Republic? Why didn't that happen? They have a big stockpile of nuclear weapons, right? Russia in itself. Why didn't just give some to the Islamic Republic and make their own? So didn't it make strategic sense to just provide the weapon?
Russia to the Islamic Republic? That's your question?
Yeah.
Okay, before Jeffrey answers, just let me quickly say that Russia agrees with the United States that the Islamic Republic should never have nuclear weapons. They have consistently been on the same side of the United States. That's not true? Jeffrey, go ahead.
So Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state is in the process, has played a role in facilitating the regime's transformation and expansion of the Shah's truly civil nuclear program, which was civilian.
No, Jeffrey. Nuclear. Let me clarify what I was saying before you respond. I'm talking about they want them to be able to have nuclear enrichment abilities, okay, but not to the point of having nuclear weapon.
So actually, that's going to be in one of the reports I post in the discussion that separates the Shah, the Mullahs, and His Highness Reza Pahlavi's approach towards nuclear power. So Putin's criminalized counterintelligence selling 2 light water reactors to Iran, right? Building off some of the stuff and, expanding in a manner that supports weapons grade enrichment, not civilian application of what the Shah's truly civilian nuclear program was. So the Shah wanted nuclear power back in the 70s. The Shah gets taken down via the Red-Black Alliance. In the beginning, the Ayatollah was like, yep, anything that's Western is evil. Then in about a couple years later, in the early 80s, that switches where now the Mullah regime's pursuing nuclear weapons. The Soviets started helping them modify the Bashir nuclear plant, which was initially built by Germany. It was half finished when the Shah fell. This kind of cooperation continues even after the fall of the Soviet Union. It was paused for a bit during, before Putin. Putin picks up, starts assisting the Mullah regime's pursuit of nuclear weapons, or building dual purpose capability to enrich uranium to the point where they can support a nuclear weapons program. The Chi-Coms were giving them experience on how to modify that reactor. So as far as the idea of why Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state doesn't provide whole turnkey systems to the Mullah regime, that's 6, 7. Partly probably because that's one of the levers that Putin has traditionally tried to use to eat concessions out of the United States. Our response will be very quickly to then nuclearize Ukraine, right? Tit for tat. That said, if you think you're on your way out, then you just kind of act like a douchebag because you really don't care about long-term costs, do you? And that's where Putin's at right now, along with the Mullah regime. So
okay, so there is a chance for
there is
providing.
That's again why the Mullah regime has to go, right? Because you have all these exogenous actors, whether it's Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state, the Chinese Communist Party, elements of Pakistan via A2 Khan and his descendants or followers.
Let me just check this with Jeffrey, okay? Because in 2015, Russia physically removed over 25,000 pounds of enriched uranium from Iran to prevent bomb making. Russia supplies all fuel for the Islamic Republic's Bushehr plant and demands the return of all spent waste, preventing plutonium extraction. And then Russia voted for major UN Security Council sanctions between 2006 and 2010, specifically to stop the Islamic Republic's enrichment. And basically, a nuclear armed Islamic Republic would rival Russia's regional power, potentially trigger an arms race on Russia's southern border. So, what do you think about these points?
So, I'm not saying that Russia didn't do that in the early aughts. That's true. That is, as the environment changes, as the concentration of power changes, as different countries' internal demographic and other pressures change, so do their priorities. And I would contend that almost assuredly, given Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state's track record of providing restricted dual purpose technology to the Ba'athist regime, and then, while they were delaying our efforts to take down the Ba'athist regime in Iraq prior to Operation Iraqi Freedom, having plainclothes Spetsnaz sanitizing Russia's involvement, Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state's involvement in doing so, that while Russia may say one thing, that doesn't mean they adhere to it. So, I mean,
Right,
Putin has violated any number of agreements.
I just remember the reason why I had this other impression, because I remember for over the years, the Islamic Republic being extremely frustrated with Russia over this.
So the initial hesitancy might be that they just wanted to keep, they're trying to game it out so that they can use it as leverage, long-term leverage against the United States and or dependency upon Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state. Like I said, those priorities change. First, I don't trust Putin's criminalized counterintelligence because they violate every agreement they ever signed.
Yeah. Right,
and second off, people's priorities change as the environment changes, both geopolitically, strategically, and internally. So when I get the report, I'll send it to you.
Last thing I want to say is which is, I'm not saying it's correct based on what Jeffrey's saying, but my impression always has been that that Russia loves the idea for the Islamic Republic to always be able to always be one step away from having a nuclear weapon, as a way but not actually having it, but being one step away from it, to always be able to threaten the United States, or they're gonna come nuclear. So always to use it as a way, that as a pressure point. That was their main goal.
So that might have been during the early aughts. Here's the problem with that. How do you enforce that? How do you enforce that with a Mullah regime that like is pseudo-theologically motivated?
Yeah.
There really is no way.
Okay. All right.
We had a comment from Coping in the chat that I'd like to read. The reason is simple. The Islamic Republic is geopolitically an irrational actor and too close to Russia to risk. Also, a regime change will make Iran potentially a perpetual liability.
Yep. Obviously.
So next, we have Armin.
Oh, I have a question for Jeffrey and Gary. Let's go with Jeffrey. If you were right now the Islamic Republic, what would you do? Like, throw out all morality out the window and think survival only. Survival only. After the massacre that you have committed on the Iranian people, and now, with Trump's military asset all around Iran, and Israel signaling that they're also ready to attack, and the European Union also declaring the IRGC as a terrorist group, and knowing that the Iranian people are ready for another uprising as soon as they get the chance, what would you do right now? What would be the best strategy for survival?
I guess the Mullah regime's best chance for survival would be to get clandestine transfer of nuclear weapons and the means to mass deliver them.
Can they do that right now?
Well, so like, remember what you had said regarding how the Mullah regime is trying when they looked at Iraq vis-a-vis North Korea, right? And so you have two case studies, right? You have Saddam, who was in pursuit of nuclear weapons along with other types of WMD capability. The mix was different than, say, before Operation, what was it, Desert Fox, and then Desert Storm before that, and North Korea, right? What are the things? We hit Iraq and we didn't hit North Korea. What's the difference? North Korea crossed the asymmetric deterrence threshold defined as possession of ballistic missiles and nuclear weapons. Yeah. So, I mean, that's again why they have to go, right? Because they're not going to give that up. They already know they're done, right? I could say with a very high degree of probability, there's a very high degree of human certainty. There's a very high degree of probability that the Mullah regime is dead, no matter what. Right?
But that option doesn't seem to be on the table because of the, Trump just bombed your major uranium enrichment facilities.
Remember when I said it? You're not wrong. Remember when I said there is non-traditional approaches towards obtaining fissile grade material? That's actually also, like I talked about, Silex or exogenous actors refining your uranium, or just giving you whole turnkey systems, whether it's nuclear weapons or more frighteningly other types of WMDs, say like racially targeted synthetic, biology-based bioweaponry. That's even worse than nuclear weapons.
How long would that take for you to prepare that if that was
synthetic
right now the Islamic
bioweaponry?
Republic? Huh?
Synthetic bioweaponry, like advanced bioweapons, very, very quickly. Deadly. So one of the reasons why we engaged in things like the war on terror, I'll use a case study of this, and this actually kind of ties into why the Mullah regime is such a threat. So right after the terrorist attack of September 11th, I don't know if anybody's ever heard of this person. Her name was Afa Siddiqui. So a lot of people, they don't know about her, right? So Afa Siddiqui, sometimes known by her moniker Lady or Dr. Al-Qaeda. And the reason that Afa Siddiqui, well, she was also referred to by the FBI and the CIA as the most dangerous woman in the world. So why? Why did they say that? Afa Siddiqui, not a dumb lady, radical Islamicist, born to radical Muslim fundamentalists in America that were of Pakistani descent. 9/11 kicks off. She got a full ride to MIT for biotech. She drops out of MIT. She goes overseas to Afghanistan with the stated goal of leveraging her skill set to develop racially targeted bioweaponry to target the racial demographics in the West. So we went out and grabbed her. Why is it that Afa Siddiqui was considered the most dangerous woman in the world? Was it the asymmetric nature of her alternative attack methodology, like bioweaponry? Yeah, partly. It's that it's easily repeatable. And this is like in 2000, early aughts. If you wanted to make a nuclear weapon, you needed a lot of money and big, large infrastructure to produce nuclear weapons. This is not, of course, taking into account things like Silex. With advanced bioweaponry, you just need an average biologist and a bad dream. That becomes even more like dangerous when you enter the world of today, where you have democratized supercomputing, synthetic biology, and mirrored life, and like easily obtainable like genetic sequencers and all that stuff. I actually wrote a report about that in part underwrote the risk assessment for AI being misused to do that. Like I said, the Mullah regime has to go.
Do you think they're doing that right now as we speak, given that that's the most rational thing to do?
Potentially. That's the other thing, though, right? Because it has such a low signature. The time is you may not know.
And what if you have that? What would you do with it to scare the
To
world?
go into the specifics of how you'd probably employ something like that for obvious reasons.
Okay. Oh my God, that's good. All right, that's good.
Could what China, all the planes China was sending over, could they be contributing to something like that?
That was one of the concerns I and some others sent up the chain.
Okay.
I was going to circle back to the issues regarding terminology and libertarianism and all that. That seems like, that's tabled and gone. So again, the bad part of the good, bad, and ugly. So the good part was Donald very much disrupted the Mullah regime's traditional approach towards obtaining nuclear weapons. And he did so both to save Israel and to save like Iranian people who would have been caught in the crossfire. The bad is that the Mullah regime has any number of alternative means to reconstitute that capability very quickly. You talked about breakout, right? This, like the Russians want to have breakout capability. That's true. That said, because of the operational impact of those technologies going on and on and on, breakout capabilities now measured in maybe a couple days to a week. No longer like measured in months. That's why, like, when the Mullah regime is like, well, you cannot kill the technology even if you destroy the facility. Yeah, that's great. That's why we kill the people that want it, because that's the only given the operational impact as given those technologies and the inelasticity of the Mullah regime's pursuit of WMDs, the only effective approach towards counterproliferation that I can see is that the regime has to go, whether they're taken out in a strike or if they want to leave, go and leave. Hopefully Donald gives them that choice. Look, mullahs, you have two choices in the next 24 hours. Get the hell out, or I bomb you into oblivion, right? Like, and then, either they pull an Assad and go to like Moscow and then be used as, I don't know what the hell Putin's doing with Assad, or they get obliterated. Either way, the Mullah regime, if the issue is ensuring the Mullah regime does not get nuclear weapons of mass destruction, and the means to mass deliver them, they have to not exist inside Iran. They have to go.
That's a perfect Trump impression, by the way.
Okay, for the remainder of our list, we have Heidi and Dijal.
Hi, yeah, that's actually, Jeffrey, that's a good point, because I often think nuclear weapons aren't the worst weapons. Biological weapons definitely are, especially with the proliferation for the last, 15 years of the CRISPR-Cas9 technology. That's going on all over the world, which is a little scary. Kind of circling back, I think it was Shauna that asked about the war fatigue and the mood in the United States. I think it's been at least a decade that both sides have had this fatigue, because there's two things that there was broad agreement on, and this is a time when we're really divided in the United States. But the two things that there was broad agreement on was withdrawal from Afghanistan and better relations with Russia. Both Obama and Trump had that on their campaign platforms. So that doesn't happen too often in the United States. And then I wanted to say regarding parity, again, Jeffrey's right. We have overwhelming superiority in the United States in most areas. The two areas that we really don't is, again, going back to the industrial base. The United States does not have an ability to manufacture things like artillery quickly. Russia has 3 times the manufacturing capacity that Europe and the United States have combined. So that's huge, because you can have all the weapon systems in the world, but you have to make the bombs, you have to make the artillery. And then the one area that I suspect will catch up pretty quick, but the United States does not have hypersonic missiles. And so far, most of the platforms that we were developing have ended up being failures. There's a new one coming out this year, as a matter of fact, in the spring. So maybe that'll bring us back to parity with Russia. The United States has overwhelming superiority, especially in the air and in most areas, but we do have some weaknesses, and those are the weaknesses.